Hi, complexity exposes how organizations actually operate. As growth and pressure increase, the challenge is no longer strategy. Or is it? We are back with part two with Joseph Martin with Kinectify, and we are going to talk about what Joseph and his team actually had to execute in order to make this happen. So, Joseph, can you give us just a quick recap of part one? So, if people didn't hear part one, they have some context.
Yeah, absolutely. So we founded our company in 2020, 2021, and that was pre what we think of pre-AI, pre-generative AI. And we built an exciting SaaS company. We got great clients, some of the biggest brand names in the United States in terms of in the entertainment industry that we're in. And we had a nice, great growing company. And then the advent of AI came, and we had a tough decision where we were deciding, do we step back and rebuild our company, meaning our technology stack, how we do our work, how we approach our work, how we execute our work, so we can deliver these new capabilities to our clients and we can continue to grow and evolve and stay current and push the envelope to the future? Or do we stay comfortably put that we invested a lot into how our company looked at that day, and we try to move forward with our current technology stack and our current processes and continue down that traditional sales path of building our company?
So part one was all about how the decisions, the considerations you had to take under consideration, the challenges. And so part two is the decision is made. You took some action. I want to kind of revisit. Let's start with taking your engineers offsite. I think that's a really powerful thing. And then just curious from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got to a point where at first we did the thing that most management does. We encouraged staff empowerment. We supported professional licensing with these new technologies coming out. Most of these companies have licenses, and you can go and learn and get certifications and stuff like that, licenses and certifications and training. So we supported that. And then what we saw was diminishing ROI compared to what we knew was possible. If we really reinvented the way that we worked and really changed how we approached our work and the technologies we used. And when we saw that, we just took a step back and said, why don't we bring everyone in person? We're a remote company. We'll bring everyone in person to our Las Vegas office, and we will do what's called an engineering pair programming, where we'll bring them in and we'll spend a week together and we'll train them on the things that we've learned and brainstorm with them around all these new capabilities and tools and arts of the possible. And then we're going to work with them for that week and pair program. And that was supposed to be a week endeavor. When we got them into the office and we started working with them, and teaching them how to do things called like agentic looping and having AI agents and setting up different skill sets where agents could automatically do front end programming and back end programming and design work and do all of these different things. Um, we realized a week isn't enough, right? It's a good orientation, and it was good to get them a foundational knowledge, but now what we need to do is take 2 weeks off work, our next sprint, and we need to rebuild basically all of our services and how we approach the work and integrate all of these technologies into our operating system.
Mhm.
And so we made that harder call that this isn't a week pause. This is going to be in totality around a 3 week pause, and we're going to dig in deep and rebuild the company basically.
And what were some tensions in that 3-week period that you didn't expect?
There were two buckets. One we really dove deep into in part one, where we have client expectations, right? And we had these client expectations of certain delivery, and there's the normal maintenance stuff that comes in, like you have software defects and bugs and certain things that come. And this new feature we were working on, we decided to focus the company. We talked about that in part one too, on one feature.
Mhm.
We had already started that feature because we had gone down this path where we decided that we have one major feature in the application and we're going to create a new modern one and we're going to use AI. But we were like doing it, like I said, through encouraging self-education of our staffing and stuff like that. When and then through that process, we decided no, we're going to pull the team in and take this new approach and go deeper in AI and go deeper through this change management process. And so clients already had an expected deadline on that new feature.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, it's going to take us a few more months, right? Because we're gonna have the staff come in.
Mhm.
We're gonna take these 3 weeks and rebuild how we do our efforts. And in a perfect world, that's gonna accelerate things and we'll still meet the same deadline. But we all know in software that's not how it works because we're learning new things and there's new capabilities and we're learning AI so deeply now because we're integrating it. We're saying we can do these 5 really cool things that are exciting that we want to do, and we're gonna go ahead and do it while we're building this thing because it's better to build it now than revisit it later. And so it really extended the deadline. So we have the normal client pressure, which we already dove into. But the other thing that I really want to talk about here is internally.
Mhm.
When we dove in, we thought we're going to make our engineers faster
Mhm.
and they're going to write better code because they're not going to write millions of lines of syntax anymore. We're going to have AI agents write a lot of that syntax and they're going to be architects and they're going to orchestrate the AI and everything. But what we failed to realize until we really got into it and our eyes were opened was what happens when we increase productivity 400% or 1,000%? How are we going to write all the knowledge base articles?
Yes.
How are we going to publish all of the release notes?
Mhm.
How are we going to write all the user stories,
Mhm.
right? Like organize the work for the engineers. We
Mhm.
have quality assurance that has to happen. We have product management that has to happen. We have documentation that has to happen for our clients. Are we going to hire an army of people or around the engineering team?
Yeah.
Or are we going to find other ways of working? And that was a whole process of learning to figure out where are the choke points that are going to emerge when we speed this part of the workflow up 400% plus. And that was really that was an interesting step in the
Yeah.
evolution.
I'm glad you mentioned that because again, if what I continue to hear is just going to such a deep level. You've done an amazing job of just continuing to go deep in all the considerations. And, you just open the door to a whole other thing. We can do it, but there's a whole lot of work that we have to do in order to be able to communicate that
Yeah.
and provide for our clients. So, what did you do?
So what we did is at first we were like, do we get contractors in here and we're going to write all these knowledge base articles? It sounds silly thinking back on it. We're using AI to do all that. But like thinking back on it, it sounds silly. That wasn't our first thought. The first thought was it's going to create these choke points. So are we going to hire 2 or 3 product owners
Mhm,
and have them attached to one scrum team instead of one?
mhm,
Are we going to hire contractors to help with the knowledge base article? And then my CTO and I got together, and it was really his idea as a technologist. He's like, there's technology answers for this.
mhm,
We just need to think through them.
mhm,
And so what we decided to do was we most of our internal services, we use HubSpot, which is very common for our knowledge base and our customer support.
mhm,
We use Azure DevOps, which is very common to organize all of our features and user stories, which is basically project management. They call it product management for the engineering team. We can think of it like a project management tool. So we have these tools. The cool thing about these tools, they have APIs. And many of them have like the AI equivalent of APIs, which is MCP, but it's like very similar. Think of it as API. So they have API integrations, right? So we looked at all of these things that will become choke points, and we experienced some of that choke points that kind of pulled this information out for us as well. And we said, well, part of this time where we pause and stop is that our normal feature deliverables, and we're working on rebuilding our technology stack, is that we are going to do integrations, API integrations
mhm,
into our central hub, which is like think of Claude, right?
mhm,
And we're going to create AI agents and stuff that are trained and skill sets in those agents that are trained to write the knowledge base articles according to our current format, to write the release notes, to publish.
Mhm.
We can ideate
Mhm.
inside Claude or Cursor and say, here's our new user interface for this new cool feature. Now you tell the I want you to create the features and user stories needed to bring this to life. And it's trained on our code. It has our entire environment,
Mhm.
has access to all of our code and everything. So it can look and follow our patterns and say, these are the features and user stories. And then it will command it and say, publish these to Azure DevOps. And it publishes them.
Wow.
And then we have another skill set we train, an AI skill set that says, I want you to estimate the level of effort for all of this work. So we don't have to meet in backlog grooming anymore
Mhm.
and groom 200 points when we used to only groom 60.
Mhm.
We don't have to groom like when we used to only do like 15 user stories. Now we have 150 or whatever it is. We don't have to go item by item. What we do now is it's a higher level understanding of what we're building with the UI there, where we have mock-ups of the user interface that shows what we're building, and then it's already the level of effort is already pointed according to our historical. The AI has all the historical information for the last 4 years of how we judge level of effort for all of these things. And so now it's more critical thinking where we meet together as a team, and the team's like, we actually need some more focus on this area, or I don't quite agree with this area, and let's talk through these things. And then when they pick the stories up, it's not engineers doing it, it's integrated, the API integration from DevOps back into the environment, the development environment, where AI can pick up those stories and code it, and it can task out the stories, and then it can start coding. And so the engineers are orchestrating a lot more than they did before, and they're ensuring quality and architecture and system design and critical thinking skills, as opposed to spending so many hours writing individual lines of code. And so I'm not trying to oversell it as it's this perfect utopia of never writing a line of code. It's definitely work and it's a lot of critical thinking.
Mhm.
But the fact that we're able to increase production by over 400% just on the step one of our evolution, right? We're thinking we're going to get to 10x sometime this year, or early next year. Um, so as we go down this evolution of change, these are the things we thought about is like, you got this one core area, like we started in this conversation, right? Where we're going to speed this up by hundreds of percentage points, right? What touches this area? And then what can we do to apply similar methodologies to these areas?
Mhm.
And then what are the other choke points that randomly like start coming up? And just addressing those choke points as they happen instead of trying to pre-plan and think about everything. You're never going to be able to do that. You have to do it agile, like as you go and you find these choke points and then working on those things.
So I definitely want to go there. So in the SaaS world, is choke point a common terminology?
Yeah, I think so. It's what we call it, but like that friction point, right? That would slow things down.
Because that's again, as soon as you start using that, I'm like, okay, if I'm not in that world, do I understand what that is? And I figured it out, but I think these are things that companies can spend more time on. Like
Yeah,
what you just said, it's like, okay, this, then this. And it's, again, you may take it for granted because this is the world that you're in. But like we've said, a lot of what you're saying is, most of what you're saying is so applicable outside of your industry.
yeah,
Terminology might be different, but again, I hear patience, I hear focus, I hear operating discipline. And so, not everything's going to go right, right? It's going to go sideways, it's going to go wrong. Can you give us
yeah.
an example of that? Like something that didn't go the way you thought and you had to figure it out? I mean, all the way along, we've heard it, but just like one instance, like, oh, we got that one wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Let me think of a couple. Um, one thing that I noticed is the importance of leadership being involved, working hand in hand with the team. And that's not the mentality of a lot of leaders these days in corporate America or wherever. It's I pay you to do this. So I'm going to delegate this down and I'm not going to micromanage you. But the problem is if you go too far and let the pendulum swing too far in that direction, that means you have a vision
Mhm,
and then you're delegating away the most important parts of your vision
mhm,
to people that might not fully understand or be motivated in the same ways as you,
Mhm.
and then you're not involved, so you're not really guiding and directing because you don't really understand what's going on because you delegated all that stuff away. And I think that's the downside of that approach. So with us, it was going with the team. So they get to have all the creativity and the space to figure things out and work, but we're working alongside them.
Mhm.
And so we understand what they're doing and we understand places where things can go wrong. So one thing is like my CTO and my engineers are very passionate about engineering and coding, right? So when we started on this path, when I talked about these friction points that surround the team,
Mhm.
that wasn't as high priority to them as like the mountain of work that they wanted to do in those 2 weeks where we gave them those 2 weeks to get their stuff right. So all this other stuff was naturally more secondary,
Mhm.
right? So it was important for me as CEO to be involved in that process and to be partnering with them and keeping my eye closely on it because I'm like, I can see things
Mhm.
easily where I'm like, it doesn't really matter if you get 400% better. If all these things that touch it don't speed up,
Sure.
we're not going to be able to deliver 400% better or
Uh,
faster
mm,
or whatever. And so I was able to say, well, we're going to reprioritize. And some of that bled in after those 2 weeks where we gave them the time to code, where we said, well, the next sprint, we're going to be at 50% capacity on features and the rest of it's going to be finishing up this work, right? So we can actually
mhm.
fully integrate everything we need to. And so I think that's one thing where like there's always things that pop up that you can't really that you won't foresee. And then there's also different motivations of different team members that are just natural, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. But it's really important for leadership to like be in the weeds with them executing this. And that's why you see kind of going on and on, but like that's where you see these really successful companies like the Teslas of the world and the Facebooks, the Metas of the world and things. Their leaders are naturally like on the trade show floor,
Mhm.
they're with a team, they're alongside the team,
Mhm.
and, like, you'll hear guys like Mark Zuckerberg saying, like, "Why would I delegate off, like, the most important things of my company? I would rather delegate off other things that are administrative and things so I can have the time to work alongside my company." And I think that's a beautiful thing, and that's the way that I like to lead.
No, and I hear the partnership piece again, going back to be reasonable that, you're a founder. And so not everyone is going to be as passionate as a founder, but your CTO and the engineers are passionate about their work. So tapping into that passion is critical. Then I also want to say too, there's different schools of thought on, lead from, lead from above or lead from on high to no, get into the business. And so
Mhm.
how large is Connectify? How many
Kinectify, what's that? How many employees?
employees?
Yeah, we have 25 employees, and I would say from a SaaS company of our size, you would probably expect 50 to 80 employees.
Okay.
So what we're doing internally works, and it's improving against benchmarks of companies that are of comparable size that are traditional SaaS companies.
Okay. And that's why I wanted to say that. So I wanted you to share that because is it easier to do this with a company your size than a company of 300 people?
Oh, absolutely. I think like one of our board members is a very high level in the technology organization of Airbnb, and he was at Microsoft before that. And I meet with him regularly as like kind of mentoring type
Mhm.
conversations and just checking in on like what the big tech companies are doing.
Sure.
And what I notice with these big technology type focused companies is they have really innovative ideas and they have the right ideas and the right vision.
Mhm.
It's also a very large global organization, so implementing that is the challenge,
Yes.
right? And they have strategies and ways of doing that. But it's more of a cruise ship to try to turn, and that's where the CEOs at those companies fight. So you see them flattening, and they're talking about flattening and flattening and flattening their organizations because that's the ongoing fight of like Steve Jobs is like, I want Apple to run as a startup when he was alive and he was leading Apple. And so he's just always fighting against the natural bureaucracy
Yes.
that evolves, right?
Mhm.
And so for a smaller company, and I was just talking to this with this board member just last week. I was like, with a smaller company as Kinectify, I listen to the vision.
Mhm.
of these bigger companies, I listen very closely to what the CEO of NVIDIA is talking about, that, the vision of AI, because these are the guys inventing it. Like, they're the guys making the chips,
Mhm.
right? I listen to these guys, like, of Airbnb adopting it, and other, the CEO of Claude, Sam Altman, and these guys. I listen to their vision because that's what they're building towards, and that's what they're wanting to do. And I'm like,
Mhm.
if I align with the purpose of their technology,
Mhm.
the advantage I have is I only have 25 people to do it with.
Right.
I don't have 5,000 people across the world to do it with, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm doing it with 25 people and it's as hard as it's been, I'm like, no wonder people are like, well, what's the benefit of AI? We haven't seen the transformational effect yet. I was like, well, what's the benefit of the internet? And how long did that transformational effect happen when it rolled out? And you had the dot-com bubble and all those other things where everyone thought it was just like this failed experiment. It wasn't. So that's what I think is like, when we're talking on this podcast about operational discipline,
Mhm.
I think it's a really big piece of the puzzle to say changing the way you work is not easy,
Mhm.
and the advantage you have at a smaller organization is if you align with the vision of the new technology and what the creators are trying to do, and you work hard with operational discipline inside of your company, you can achieve absolutely incredible things at a faster rate
Mhm.
than maybe a bigger company could achieve.
Yeah. No, it's so clear, it's so obvious, but I want people to know the size of your organization because they may be working in a larger organization, and so you have to take that into consideration. The other piece, Joseph, that I think is important, that has to be said, which is these are not quick fixes. These are not
Yeah,
isolated things that, I call it whack-a-mole. You can't, "Okay, I'm gonna do that, and it's gonna fix it. I'm gonna do that, it's gonna fix it." This is you had a well thought out, um, strategy. You had to go back and rethink it. Well thought out strategy, and your execution plan is the key to delivering. And so because that was already in place, your foundation was already strong. Doesn't mean you didn't struggle, doesn't mean it wasn't
yeah.
hard, but imagine if you didn't have that operating discipline in place. What do you
Yeah.
think some of the challenges would have been?
It would have been pretty impossible to do. You would have to institute something.
Mhm,
And I had this unique experience earlier in my career when I worked for a very large credit union. It
mhm,
was like $1 billion in assets under management or whatever. And they had like 400, 500 employees and multiple branches. And they wanted to do something quite innovative in the cannabis banking space. There weren't a lot of banks banking cannabis, and it was a really big community safety crisis because you had a lot of cash on the streets that wasn't as traced and tracked, and they wanted to get into the banking and tax collection. All this made it really hard because there weren't as many bank accounts serving that industry. And when I was there, their AML function had good people in it, but from a leadership perspective, it was underdeveloped. It was like where you see a lot of organizations, right? They might not have like this operating system in place yet. People are doing their jobs the way that they've always kind of done them.
mhm,
And that's what happened. So when I went into the bank, the first thing to do that I did was like, let's pull together the team. And you might have a big organization, like 400 people, but the people in this space weren't that many. There was like four, right? And I'm like, well, let's see how we're doing work today. Let's see where the risks are,
mhm,
where the opportunities are, and let's put a system in place. And so we did that. The first thing was learning the technology that was already there, and learn and like I spent time with the team and with the technology vendor to figure out what the features were and like how the technology actually worked. I looked at our procedures. I looked at our accounts, and I found a lot of areas of risk that we could de-risk,
mhm,
and a lot of wasted effort around trying to manage this risk that just wasn't really aligned with the mission of the organization and held us back from being able to move forward as an organization. And so we de-risked some of that stuff, and that freed up a lot of time. We instituted things like there were like narratives they had to write. So we put templates in place so they kind of knew like how to fill these things out a lot faster, filling out templates and things like that. And so there was a lot of different areas. And as we started chopping that wood, it took like 5 months or so to get a good foundation.
mhm,
It was amazing. The efficiency, the capacity we freed up,
mhm,
just putting an operating system in place. And once we had that operating system in place, it was easy to institute new things. So if there's new programs or new services or new things that organization wanted to implement, it was a lot easier because we had a framework now that we could work from, and that framework existed. Like I left that organization, and that framework continued to exist, and it wasn't exactly the same way that I instituted it. There's a new leader there, and they were able to adopt that framework to what served them at the time, but they still had that framework and it existed, and I think that's just really important.
Yeah, no, it is. And how would a company know that their operating system is starting to break? What would they typically see that maybe they see, but they're not recognizing that it's breaking?
Yeah. For me, there's some metrics that, and every organization is going to have different metrics that they would measure. I think some common ones are around, for me, especially in this technology world that we live in today, a lot of it's like headcount increase. Like if it's like repetitive, like we need more people, we need more people, we need more people. And that's a repetitive thing. You see that a lot in risk management functions where like we need more people and leadership's like, well, this isn't a profit making side of the organization. I'm not gonna give you more people. And then people, well, we can't do our jobs. Like we're not gonna be able to manage the risk without more people.
Mhm.
And when you start like seeing that, it's a good indication to do a review to say, am I putting the resources I have to use in the right ways? Or is there waste in certain areas that I could either improve upon if I put methodologies in place,
Mhm.
or if I had the right technologies or tools in place, or use the existing tools that I have that are in place? And just like at that credit union example, like when I first got in there, I did a technology review and I was like, there's I think there was somewhere around three softwares out of their stack of softwares that we used in that area of the business that we didn't need. It was duplicative. And I'm like, well, we can just remove these. And then there's other areas. So you're gonna like if you step back and do a program review, if that hasn't been done in a while, to really critically think about what does our program look like? What tools do I need to do it? What are my focus areas? What are areas that might just be wasteful energy? A lot of times you can find um, there's a lot of areas that you could reorganize and that can help you start to put a system together for how you want to do your work.
Do you think companies are, because AI is here, it's been here, but now companies are just they're scrambling. Do you think they're moving too fast without fully understanding the capabilities? What are your thoughts there?
I think there's too much inertia and they're moving too slow.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay.
Yeah, they're moving way too slow and there's too much inertia and there's no strategy. And so there was one organization I was working with that was evaluating our software, and they had no short of like five digital transformation people that they hired that were highly paid people they brought in to do all this digital transformation. They're doing exactly no digital transformation. And I was like, a lot of it's committee meetings and talking and all this stuff that they feel like it's a strategy because they have all this paperwork that says their strategies.
Mhm.
But a lot of it is fluff. It's like PowerPoint presentations and memos and committee meetings. People aren't actually digging in to the operations like we're talking about
Mhm.
and working in partnership with the people doing the work. Like it's easy to look down on an analyst that's paid $50,000 a year, but guess what? That's the person clicking the buttons doing the actual jobs at your organization. And we see this with our clients like all the time, where you have management and management sits in their office with the door closed,
Absolutely. Yep.
right? And they're not with the team. So they don't understand what the team's doing and the areas where they could improve their own processes and leverage the tools more efficiently.
Yeah, I think about the work that I've done over the years, and I have strong background in HR and all of that, but it's never really been the traditional HR. And for me, the word "we" is so central to what I do. We own this. We
Yeah.
made this happen. And I remember every now and then I would get something from, my team. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. We're so glad that you're, working with us on this." And I'm thinking, why wouldn't I? Right? But
Right.
but for them and their experience wherever different companies they were working in, they didn't have a leader who worked with them like
Yeah.
that. And I had a signature question that I always asked, which is, "How can I help and support you today?" that was critical because if something's in your way, I need to know, right?
Yeah,
And for me, it was just a given, but for people I was working with, they were like, "We really appreciate that question." So I keep hearing the partnership wherever you are working. I think that
yeah.
that's critical no matter what size your organization is. And I love when you said we're moving too slow. A lot of companies don't know how to approach this, start to approach it the wrong way, and then they're going to have to back up. So as we end this section, part 2, Joseph, what would you like to share with this CEO audience?
I think a lot of it comes down to, like we were talking about these bigger organizations,
Mhm,
it really comes down to strategy. Like we're talking about partnering with the people that do the work, like seeing how they do the work,
mhm,
and then coming up with a strategy. So if there's slow AI adoption like we're seeing,
mm,
and people are really stressed out about AI governance and they're stressed out about all this other stuff, that stuff's important, but like we also have to see like how is the work being done today?
mm,
What tools are available today? Too often you have leaders that say, um, go crazy on AI, right? We have governance in place, so we've approved these tools.
mhm,
So go crazy on them. And they expect the staff to do what I said. Like we had frustrations in our company and be like, we're just going to pay for your certifications and we just expect you to go figure this stuff out and bring the ideas to us and figure it out because we're not going to micromanage you, but we expect like great results. Guess what? You're not going to get great results.
yeah,
Like if you like get in with the team,
mhm,
you like we did in this podcast we talked about in this case study, this example, you get in with the team, you see how they do their work,
absolutely, yeah,
and then what's the realm of the possible, and you brainstorm with them, you figure it out with them, and that's how you make an actual strategy, not a PowerPoint deck about a strategy. You make an actual strategy, and you're like,
mhm,
hey, this is how we're going to do it. It's going to have these other average impact operationally in these areas, and we're going to work on that.
mhm,
And there's not enough people, especially in my opinion, larger organizations, holistically looking at this stuff, saying, like, let's go to one team, one department, let's sit down with them, let's figure out how to incorporate these new technologies and execute. And I think like if I'm talking to any other CEO out there, I'm like, get outside of your office
mhm,
and like get in with your team and figure out like what are the things you want to push and what are the results, get hyper focused in one area of your business and say, let's work with the team alongside them and let's figure this out.
mhm,
You know, let's drive the car with both hands on the steering wheel and our eyes open
mhm,
with a team and let's drive these results and figure this stuff out and learn. And you'll have challenges, you have friction points, you have things that pop up and you'll solve those as they pop up.
mhm.
And then you get really good at it. And then you can take those lessons learned and you can go to other teams, other departments of the company, and you're going to see a lot more adoption that way.
I love that. Again, like I said, I could talk to you forever, but I won't. But here's another question. Your organization is, again, small enough to be able to do that. If
Yeah.
I'm a CEO, it's a larger organization, and I have a senior team around me, what's the responsibility of that senior team?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really good models of companies that are larger that are able to move quick and innovate. And I think, and those CEOs are very, they're public about how they do it. They talk about it a lot.
Mm,
So one company that I love to follow and listen to very closely is the CEO of NVIDIA,
mhm,
the guy that makes all the chips that we're using right now, right? He has 60 people report to him. And everyone's like, well, how do you have 60 people report to you? You can't do that. But the way that he talks about it publicly and you can listen to him, and I think it's really interesting to follow. He has basically captains of like each area of his business, like lieutenants that are like, any area of the business that's important, it's gonna have this person responsible for it.
mhm,
And then that CEO is gonna clear his schedule so he doesn't have a whole bunch of meetings all the time. And he's gonna work with those people, right? To say, I understand what's going on with these areas of my business. And then what Mark Zuckerberg talks about is he has a similar structure with these lieutenant ideas,
mhm,
is he says all these other things that are like going like decently well. There's always stuff you can focus on, but he's like, I'm going to prioritize things ruthlessly. And I'm going to say this one area of my business is the most important area right now. And I'm going to show up like not just with that leader, with the team.
mhm,
And I'm going to like work alongside them
mm,
and I'm going to do the things that we've been talking about in this podcast and working with them
mhm,
to to drive those certain results. And I think that's what's lacking a lot of times.
mhm,
CEOs are staying behind committees, they're staying behind C-suite executives, they're creating lots of C-suite positions and expecting to delegate that down and have everyone else execute well. And then they get upset because they're like, well, nothing's changing and I'm spending all this money,
Mhm,
as opposed to uh, prioritization
mhm,
and working alongside team members and
mhm,
then having an organizational structure. And a lot of organizations, it's great to have structures that are flat. And there's a lot of like studies about the closer the CEO can be to the end customers, especially in technology, the
mhm,
better the results.
mhm,
And I believe that to be true. So even at our small company,
mhm,
director positions basically in every important area. The company has that like director or manager role. We meet once a week and we solve problems and talk to each other.
mhm,
But I keep my schedule as clear as possible so I can jump in with the team. So if we're doing this transformative effect on the engineering team, I'm showing up to their grooming meetings. I'm showing up to their planning meetings.
yeah,
I'm understanding what's going on so I can be like intimately involved in it.
mhm,
And that means the other areas of the business, I have trust that those leaders, it might not be perfect and there's like things to solve there, but like it's gonna move forward. It's gonna be like good enough for now because I'm gonna prioritize and focus on this one area
mhm,
and then I'll shift my focus.
mhm,
Maybe it's sales next, or maybe it's
or
marketing, whatever. And that's kind of how I like to run things. And I think those patterns can be applied to larger organizations, just like I hear NVIDIA and, Meta and, Airbnb and, like, all these other companies, they have, maybe different styles of how they set up their leadership structure,
mhm,
but a lot of the missions are very similar. It's like the CEO working with
absolutely, yeah.
individuals, right?
I don't think you ever really lose when you work with people.
Yeah,
I think you have to learn how to do that if your business is not built to do that. But there's so much benefit in doing that. Joseph, you've given us so much and you've shared some amazing things for us to consider. I'm so glad we did two parts. I'm really excited to bring this to the CEO audience. And I just want to thank you again. It's been an amazing conversation. I love your journey. I love if I will continue to watch and hopefully we can stay connected. But thank you so much. And I think, everyone knows that again, performance is not accidental. You've just heard how it's built into Kinectify's operating system and the operating discipline that they have in place to make things happen. So, this is Terry Wilson for Operating Discipline. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.